All right, now let me show you how to add Redux to an Angular app. There are many implementations for Redux, but the two common implementations are ngrx/store and ng2-redux. These are the most popular ones, and they're very similar in terms of their API. ng2-redux is built on top of the real Redux library and is compatible with much of the Redux ecosystem. It adds bindings for Angular 2, so you can easily connect your Angular components with Redux. ngrx/store, on the other hand, has gone the route of re-implementing the Redux pattern in an Angular 2 and RX-friendly way. This means it's not compatible with other libraries built for Redux. So in this section, I'm going to use ng2-redux, but I wanted you to be aware of ngrx/store because there are a lot of blog posts and questions on Stack Overflow that are centered around this implementation. All right, now before we get started, make sure you have the latest version of Angular CLI. So on my machine, I'm using Angular CLI version 1 beta 26. If yours is older, simply do npm install angular-cli-g. All right, now I'm going to create a new folder, redux-demo. Go into this folder and run ng init. All right, now if you look at package.json, you'll notice that we're using Angular 2.3.1. This is very important if you want to follow along with this lecture. Otherwise, when you add Redux, you're going to get an error in npm because the latest version of Redux is not compatible with older versions of Angular. So make sure you've got Angular 2.3.1 or higher. Now back in terminal, npm install Redux. So this is the main Redux library for JavaScript. It's got nothing to do with Angular. Then we add ng2-redux, which provides an Angular module for dependency injection, as well as some other helpers that we're going to use in this section. So add this to the project. Now, if for any reasons you're having difficulty creating a new Angular project and adding these dependencies, I've attached this project for you to this lecture. So simply download it and then do npm install and then ng serve. Now, if you head over to localhost port 4200, you get our familiar Angular 2 app. So now let's start implementing Redux in this application. First, I'm going to go in the source folder, under app, add a new file, store.ts. Here I'm going to export an interface called iapp_state. So this interface determines the shape of our store. For now, we're going to leave it empty, but as we go through this section, we're going to add some properties to this interface. So this interface will determine what properties we're going to have in our store. Now I'm also going to export a function which I call root reducer. So we start with one reducer function here, and as our application grows, we can break down this function into smaller, more maintainable functions, each focusing on one domain in the application. Now, as you saw in the last lecture, each reducer takes two parameters, the current state and an action. And it returns a new state. So for now, I'm just going to return the state that we get here. We are not going to implement a switch case here yet. That's going to come in the next lecture. So this is a very basic reducer. It doesn't do anything. All right, save. Now let's go to app.module. On the top, we need to import a couple of types from ng2-redux. So import from ng2-redux. First one is ng-redux, and the second is ng-redux module. Now we need to import this module into our main module, and that's used for dependency injection. So ng-redux module. Now we're going to create a constructor for app module. This constructor should get an object called ng-redux, which is of type ng-redux that we imported on the top. Now this type is generic, so we need to specify a generic parameter here in angle brackets. And what we pass here is the interface that we declared earlier. So this interface determines the shape of our store. So I'm going to go on the top, import iappState and root reducer from current folder /store. Now, back in the constructor, I'm going to use iappState as the generic argument for ng-redux. And the final step, we use this ng-redux object here and call configure store. This is to initialize our store. Now, the first argument to this method should be our root reducer. So root reducer. And the second argument is our initial store. So I'm going to pass an empty JavaScript object. This is our store object that will eventually get updated as we go through this section. With this, if we save the changes and get back to the browser, the application should still work and we shouldn't have any errors in the console. So let's double check that. Okay, here's the console. There's absolutely no errors. Perfect. So we have successfully installed Redux in this project. Next, we're going to work with actions.